Aussie, Aussie, Aussie!
Oi, oi, oi! Welcome on in, everybody, to the AZ Wildcats podcast, coming to you live from Studio K, presented by our friends at Circle K in downtown Phoenix at PHNX HQ3. I'm Damon Fairall. That is Kevin Thomas. And Kevin, we do have a very, very special guest off the top of today's show. It is, of course, Arizona wing Anthony Dell'Orso, who I'll bring on here in just a moment. But yeah, happy Wednesday to everybody. Our typical off day, but not our typical off day when we have a Friday football game that we are fired up for, and we'll be talking about later in the show. We don't want to keep ADO waiting too long though, so let's bring him on here. Delly, how we doing, my guy?
Doing great. How you guys doing?
Doing good, living life, and we are thrilled to have you here and kind of just talk about the entire offseason. But we got to start here, I think. Was what Kevin and I doing the Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi off the top of the show. Was that chill, or is that like a little bit of cultural appropriation from a couple of Americans?
No, that was a cool little touch. I liked it.
We appreciate it. We'll appreciate it. We're going to get to more of, talking a bit of the Australia side of things a little bit later. But I mostly wanted to start with, I think we'd be remiss to not start here. What every Arizona fan is talking about this offseason as it relates to you is the beard, but also the bulk, right? So
Yep.
like I was saying, all offseason, I believe that this process has been beneficial to you. Is this something you see as being a way to facilitate success for you this upcoming year? Was that like a focus point for you this offseason? The beard, mostly, I'm talking about.
Yeah, so I'll start with the beard. It was just, a spontaneous thing. Didn't really think too much of it. And I think most guys just kind of let it grow and just don't really care much. And then eventually it turns into something. And that's kind of what I did. I've kept it just for the kind of why not sake. No real, thought behind it. But to the bulk, that's definitely been something that I've kind of had on my whiteboard and circled for a while. Since the end of last season, we lost to Duke and basically got with the coaches and the strength team and we basically put this plan in straight away. Didn't really take a break. Focus on what we needed to, and this has definitely been beneficial. It's taken a lot of hard work, but I think it's something that will only help me in the future.
Yeah, Anthony, you were, obviously like taking a big step up in competition from, playing at Campbell to going to Arizona. How was that year one at Arizona? How did it feel for you? And did you experience like a huge, like kind of like, oh crap moment in the Big 12 being like, man, this is a different level of athlete than I'm used to in the CAA? Or was it a little bit easier of a transition than maybe you expected?
Yeah, it was definitely a transition. There's a lot of moments where you kind of, you may think you know what you're stepping into, and you kind of get a bit of reality check, or vice versa. Sometimes you think it's gonna be harder and it's easier, but the whole year was a learning curve. I think for a lot of people, we had, teammates like Tobe who had already been at the SEC level. Even he had moments where he had to figure out. Everyone goes through that. So just taking kind of what I learned from last year and many different aspects and kind of using that to my advantage this year with a bit more knowledge and a bit more understanding on kind of how our team wants to play and what Tommy wants and kind of how the league can kind of compare to us.
You kind of touched on it already, but how do you look back on last season for you? How do you evaluate it in terms of your personal performance? And obviously team performance is paramount. That is what matters the most. But obviously, in order to improve, you got to talk about what you were able to do. How do you look back on last season at Arizona for you? What were some high points and what were some areas of improvement that you identified?
Yeah, I think it was a great year. Obviously stepping up from Campbell and a mid-major level, there's always going to be people thinking that, you should do this or should do that. But either way, I saw last year was a positive. I grew in a way that, if I looked at myself a year ago and said, this is where I'd be at, I probably wouldn't have believed it. So stats and all that kind of stuff out the window. I think I took a huge step forward in my kind of development. And then obviously as a team, we did unfortunately lose in the Sweet 16, but I think we had, great moments. We may have started off slow. We kind of picked it up at the right time. We had a great, first year in the Big 12. We had a lot of great wins and, great teams. So overall, I'd say it was a positive year. There's more room to grow this year. Hopefully trying to get to that Final Four. But all in all, I say personally and as a team, I think we had a great year.
You mentioned that you wouldn't have believed that you'd be in this place if you asked yourself a year ago. Did when you were growing up in Australia, did you ever consider the pro route instead of the college route? Kind of how did you come to that decision to end up in America? Especially, I feel like at a school like Campbell, like I don't think a lot of international prospects, especially in a country like Australia that has the resources of a very good basketball league in place in that country would even make that decision to come overseas. So just kind of talk about what went into that decision for you.
Yeah, it's a definitely a unique route. Obviously, college isn't huge back home, and a lot of people don't understand it fully. For me, it was a lot of, I call it luck. I kind of was coming out of high school. A lot of me and my friends, we didn't really know what we want to do. You want to play basketball, but you don't really know which kind of angle to take. Um, the main goal is always to try and get to the highest level. So for me, that was, let me see if I can play in the NBL back home, or if I can get somewhere with these pro teams and see where that goes. And that unfortunately didn't happen. I ended up just kind of posting my. I was playing a big V game, semi pro games. I was posting those on YouTube just for the fun of it to see if it would maybe start something. And I would just post them and kind of put my stats in the comment section, and then literally one morning, some random guy called me, and it was my assistant coach at Campbell, and he was, building the relationship and saying, "Hey, we saw this YouTube clip. We think this and that." And from there, it really took off. And I took a visit the next week, and I committed, and that was my only phone call, my only offer, my only everything. And I kind of went there, took that, had no idea what any of it meant, had no idea who my teammates were, didn't know where the school was, didn't know anything. Just kind of took it, and then yeah, it led to something great, and then it brought me all the way here to Arizona.
That's interesting because there wasn't. It seemed like there wasn't really like a roadmap for you that you were seemingly following. You were just kind of going off of vibes, for lack of a better word, right? And that kind of leads me
Yep.
to one of our questions we had to ask you of like in Australia, like what is like the basketball roadmap like, and has it changed since your time going through it? And did you have any like influences in the Australian basketball world that you really looked up to and said, you know what, that's the path I need to follow to get to where I want to be?
Yeah, I'd say the roadmap is a lot of people want to stay home. I think a lot of people want to try and get to the pro league back home and kind of work their way up through the juniors, get to that kind of 18 or 20 range, and you kind of get into the pro teams. You just become a practice player, and you slowly kind of, develop yourself into a roster player, and that's kind of the career you make for yourself. For me, I kind of wanted to go to college, but it was looking unlikely at the time. And that's kind of what you said. It kind of just happened. I got very fortunate and lucky that that coach Monty Sanders saw my clips and was able to take me. But it's a unique route. Some people do college, some try and go overseas, some stay home. It really just depends on kind of what you have at the moment. It's a different exposure level than in the States where you have AAU and stuff, and that's kind of a little bit on the back burner back home. So it's definitely different. But I'd say now the basketball back home is growing tremendously, and people are really starting to take it seriously. And the pro teams are stepping up. They're recruiting high level guys, where they're ex NBA guys, and as a whole, the sport's really just grown from when I started till now.
And while we're on the topic of Australian hoopers, who's the real Delhi? Is it you or Matthew Dellavedova?
I think he's got it still. I mean, his name is legendary for what he did in his career. But I will say he's on the retirement path, so it's probably me coming up.
If we're doing a power rankings, you're quickly rising the Delhi ranks, it seems, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, I feel the same.
What are some of your biggest influences in Australian basketball? Obviously, we bring up Matthew Dellavedova there, who was a phenomenon in his own right. Winning that NBA Finals with the Cavs, and I'm sure back home that's probably an even bigger deal than it was here in the United States, and it was a pretty big deal here. So, just kind of like, who are some of your I guess your idols, your heroes in the Australian basketball scene?
Yeah, obviously Dellavedova is a big one. Guys like Chris Golding, I kind of watched growing up, big time shooter. Mitch Creek's another big name. Was a huge Andrew Bogut fan. I actually got to go to his academy when I was young to go have a training session with him, and that kind of got me started in basketball. So those guys have been pretty. Just watching them, a bit of they're kind of all different in their own way. So not really following them in a sense of I want to be like that, but more just kind of like I like the way they play and the things they do, and it was fun to watch. So those four, big names, and they definitely carved the way for basketball in Australia.
Yeah, and then we do have a question from Travis Holm here in our chat. One of our listeners to our show here wants to know, what's your favorite road venue that you've been to in the Big 12? For context, Travis is a Cyclone Iowa State fan, so
Oh, cool,
that
cool.
is what he is hoping you probably say.
Maybe throw him a bone.
Uh, no, I don't think I can say Hilton. I did not like that place, especially what they did to us last year. But it's definitely a cool spot. They get a lot of fans, and it's a great arena. Kansas is another great one. BYU is also great. There's a lot of good spots out there. The fan bases are pretty unreal. The stadiums are pretty big. So I'd say those three are probably my top three places to play against and get a win.
Nothing beats home cooking though, right? Like McHale is just
That is
different. The
true.
environment there, the cactus has returned. I have it back here on the pennant. Like it's gonna be elite vibes. And speaking of home cooking, we got to talk about Australian food because I was doing some research. Damon was doing some research.
We were.
And we have questions.
We were
okay?
very unaware of the Australian food scene, I will say, going into this. Pure place of ignorance. Had to do a good amount of research here for this interview.
A Lamington?
Yep,
Are they as
that's
amazing
it.
as they sound? Like a sponge cake lightly rolled in chocolate and then lightly rolled in coconut shavings.
Yep.
Sounds like heaven. Is it as good as it sounds?
It is. It is really good. It's one of my favorites. That's more of the sweet time. We got Tim Tams. I actually got a bunch of Tim Tams in the house right now.
Called that,
Um,
Damon.
yeah, Vegemite. Coach actually, he's a huge Aussie foods fan. He has a bunch of party pies and sausage rolls that he gets ordered in and he gives them to me. So we
What is a
share that
sausage
kind of.
roll?
It's basically just sausage meat wrapped around in pastry and then fried.
Yeah, I'm in. I'm in. I'm in. And then Damon, you discovered something you wanted to ask him about as well, right?
Have you ever tried kangaroo? Because kangaroo steaks were popping up on the old Google search, and I was like, "Is this like a real thing that is popular?"
I haven't had it. I don't know many people that have had it, but I know it is popular.
I figured.
Um,
Yeah, I figured
it,
that was
it's
like a thing
definitely.
that.
It's not. I don't think it's on menus as regularly as you would think, but you can definitely go find it if you wanted to.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's kind of what I assumed the answer was going to be. But
Yeah.
it's one of those Google things where it's just like, they're eating kangaroos and koalas out there in Australia, like just
Yeah.
stupid stuff like that. But I did real quick want to get back to the Arizona side of things, and you just talked about kind of just that pinch me moment. Like what does it mean to play at a program as big as Arizona basketball?
It's unbelievable. I mean, obviously starting at that mid-major level, that's kind of your everything, and then you progress through that, and then you get to a spot of Arizona, and you're like, this is everything you've wanted and dreamed of, and they give you everything you can ask for. You basically get what you give in, kind of thing. So from everyone that we have in that program, coaches, teammates, equipment staff, like everyone is 100% in. That's my favorite thing about it. It's you don't have to look elsewhere to get things. You don't have to worry about outside, whether you got to get your own guy for this or that. They all take care of you. So that's probably my favorite thing about being at a big time school like this is that they just really care about you kind of on and off the court. And obviously, you're wearing that name across your chest. It means you're representing, the city of Tucson, you're representing Arizona, like you're representing a lot of people that kind of, die for the results of Arizona sports. So I really, I'm honored to, be in that position I am now.
Yeah, Kevin alluded to it right there with the jersey pop, which you of course pulled off. I believe it was in the tournament, right? That you pulled the jersey
Yep.
pop out. But
Yep. Had that going
you
3 months.
get pretty
Yep.
amped up when you start hitting some shots. What kind of is the thought process going on there? Is that like a predetermined, like if I hit a big shot, I got a celebration ready to go, or is that more of like a just completely in the moment? I'm fired up and I'm getting everybody else fired up with me.
99% of the time, it's just I'm going crazy and I'm just not thinking. And then I will say that jersey pull was for that, like kind of how I just explained. We talked about that, and we used to have an old coach that was big about that. What you were on the front is what you play for. So I kind of told him that, when we get going, I'll do that. And I kind of stuck with it. I think I did it a few times, and that kind of became my thing during that tournament run. So,
You
Did you
seem,
know, real quick, Kevin, sorry, did you know
of
Derek
course.
Williams, like that was like his thing? Like, have you seen any of
no,
those pictures? Because there's a bunch of
no.
pictures out there of Derek Williams like in the tournament popping it. And I was wondering if that was like an inspiration thing or if that was just an Anthony Dell'Orso special.
No, I'd never seen that, but now that I know that, I might have to keep that going into this year.
Yeah, love it. Absolutely love it.
Love to see it. And then also, like, I wanted to know about the energy levels. You seem like you're a chill guy right now, just hanging out with me and Damon. And then on the court, you like you said, you kind of black out in a way. You're not really thinking. You're just kind of celebrating, going wild. Do you have a high energy vibe to you? Just doing everyday activities. Like, are you just shooting stuff like socks into the laundry and just popping the jersey, running down the hallway, going ah?
No, no, not at all. I'm very, very low key, very chill. 99% of the time, and then the game day comes around, and just everything kind of hits you at once. You got a bunch of things to focus on, and then I just kind of I guess that's my area where I'm allowing myself to kind of let it all out. So, but no, like you said, right now is how I am all the time.
And then before we get you out of here, I did want to get back to some upcoming basketball topics, right? This incoming freshman class is highly touted, and for good reason. It's extremely talented, right? You got Koa Pete, Braden Burries, Bryce James, Dwayne Aristote, Ivan Karchenkov. The list goes on and on. CD Game, Abil Mawut, right? That incoming class on paper seems to make your job as a sharpshooter even easier, right? Being able to come off the ball and have more open space, have less focus on you defensively and more focus on some of the other guys on this team, right? Do you read that the same way? And what's been your early evaluation of this incoming freshman class?
Yeah, the new guys we got are great. I mean, they're extremely coachable. Wanting to get better, wanting to, listen and take advice because, that's the biggest thing I think everyone needs is that coachability. So they're great. They definitely, provide things that, we couldn't ask any more of. They can shoot, they can dribble, they can pass. They can play multiple positions. So we're definitely looking good as a team. Those guys have helped in a major way, and we'll continue to get better as us returners will continue to get better. And I'm really excited for the season to show kind of in the steps we've taken from last year to this year, and kind of how guys returning and new have improved to, make something special happen.
Yeah, we are fired up as well, ADO. Last question before we get out of here. What was your favorite game from last season? Because there are some that come to mind. Obviously, you had the jersey pop. You had a lot of the fired up celebrations. You had the 20-point outing against Colorado, which, if you remember that game correctly, as Arizona fans, like struggling a little bit offensively until, Delhi kind of pulled us out of that funk and you were going crazy in that one. Was there one that comes to mind in particular?
A lot of great games. BYU at BYU was fun. I love road wins. Um, Probably the most iconic is Oregon in the tournament. That's probably one of my favorites. I mean, just the fact we didn't start great. We had a plan and got punched in the mouth, made a new plan, and then just stuck it out. And the way we ended that with Caleb hitting big shots, guys getting big rebounds. I hit free throws, and it was just kind of this. It felt like a great team win. To get over that hump of are they really going to lose in the round of 32, or are they going to prevail to go play Duke again? So that was probably my favorite moment, just being able to, beat Oregon like we, used to in the Pac-12 and get back to that Sweet 16.
Absolutely love it. A huge 12 points from you in that game. And yeah, that was definitely one of the better games of the year because I think that proved to Arizona fans that like this is the new iteration of Arizona basketball in the Big 12 that, this team is very mentally tough. And even if they're going to get down in games, like they're going to have a shot of coming back if, all things considered here. But Anthony Deli, we appreciate you taking the time with us, my man. This has been a lot of fun. Felt like we learned a lot about your journey from Australia to Tucson, and we are absolutely fired up to see you do the Jersey Pop celebration a little bit more this year.
We're also fired up to have some Lamingtons, just with the boys.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, have a good one, man. That was, of course, Arizona senior wing Anthony Dell'Orso, so generous with his time. Great interview, Kevin. I was, that was a lot of fun. And I felt like, there was some really, really good stuff in there, especially like the stuff about, him kind of posting his highlights just to YouTube.
Yeah.
Just being a shot in the dark. Like, hey, maybe someone sees this and some, like, freak assistant coach from Campbell was sitting in a dark room at like 3 a.m. probably and was like just scouring like 200 view highlights and goes, wait a second, who's this 6'6" sharpshooter who's just screaming in people's faces every time he hits a big shot? And they're like, get that guy on my team, please.
Yeah, no, and we're gonna go to break here in a second, but before we get to that break, like, I love that he brought up the fact that he lived in those comment sections, just throwing his stats in there, trying to get his name out there, trying to get his skill set out there.
I forgot to bring it up.
But we kind of went through a lot of stuff with ADO. We only had but so much time with the man. But Damon pulled this tweet pre-show where there was, a bit of a controversy with the first and second team All-CAA teams.
It's more than a controversy, Kevin. It's
he was robbed.
It's complete and utter highway robbery is what it is. As you can see here, Anthony Dell'Orso was named to the second team All-CAA at Campbell when he was there in his sophomore season. 21.9 points per game, third in conference play. 1.7 steals per game, second in conference play. 6.9 rebounds per game, 12th in conference play. And the CAA says that there's 5 better players in the conference. It's egregious, Kevin. Have you ever seen robbery like this in your life?
No, I haven't.
22 points per game in conference play in college, and you're not in a mid-major conference, and you're not making the all-conference team?
Not only is it highway robbery, but look at that little repost up there.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that little repost. That's the important part. ADO found that and said, you know what, mate? Repost. I love that.
That's
and I love that.
King.
I love that. And I was talking to Damon about it, and I was like, I wonder if he's gone through the archives of this show and listened to some of the post games. And I've been critical of ADO more specifically, but I was talking to I forget who I was talking to about this yesterday, but about having ADO on the show and how like critical I was of his basketball, I'll say last year.
But I think you've also been extremely high on him.
That's what I'm getting at.
Year.
Yeah, and I was really excited to have him on the show because as someone who was really critical of him last year, I'm excited to see what he can do this year because I'm actually high on the potential of ADO in 2025, much higher on the potential of ADO in 2025 than I was in 2024. And I think that's a credit to the work that ADO has put in. I think it's a credit to the work that the Arizona coaching staff has done with him. I mean, he mentioned the strength and conditioning plan that they had set foot started right after the Duke, loss and has not stopped since. And we're seeing the results of that. He looks like a changed man. And hopefully, production-wise, he's going to be a changed man, but maintain that same level of sharp shooting efficiency. Because we have also seen guys that have bulked up and lost that ability to have that touch. So I'm hopeful that ADO comes into this year and is a even bigger contributor than he was last year on a team that won't need him to pull as much weight even this year. So I'm really hopeful for what the role that ADO can bring to the 2025 Arizona Wildcats.
Yeah, I think it should be a big one in particular. I mean, you always need shooters. Every team needs shooters. Like good teams, bad teams, mediocre teams need shooters. And like there's always a fit for guys like that, right? But in particular, you need shooters when you have a guy like Koa Pete, who is clearly going to work inside the paint a little bit more so, inside the mid-range area, and needs someone to help spread it out on offense so that teams can't just collapse over top of him and really like swallow up the space that he's trying to create. So that's where Anthony Dell'Orso, a guy like that, is so huge to play with a Koa Pete type player, a Mo Krivos type player with his back to the basket, and even honestly a Jaden Bradley type player who's a point guard and isn't really providing any perimeter shooting, which just puts more pressure on everybody else to provide that perimeter shooting. So, his role is so important. Maybe he's not a starter like he was last year, Kevin, but and maybe that's not like what we want for the ceiling of the team, but certainly his role and the big shots he's going to have to take are going to be pivotal for Arizona's season. He mentioned in that Oregon game those free throws, right? ADO's on the court. Delly's out there on the court for those for those free throws in late moments, late in games and in elimination games because he's trusted by the coaching staff and he hits those big shots. I think you have to be excited about just the depth and the totality in terms of fit on this basketball roster, in my opinion.
No, yeah, I'm with you, and that's kind of what I was alluding to when I asked him about the freshmen because the incoming freshmen You know it better than anybody else, Damon. You and I know it. We create a lot of shorts for this here podcast. We check them out if you haven't. Go to our playlist and watch them. Maybe watch them a couple times. Maybe leave a comment or a like if you haven't done that already. But I asked him about that because we know that having interns here, like we do. Shout out to Emily. Shout out to Jack today. Like, they help us. They pick up the slack in areas that allow us to focus on the main thing, keeping the main thing the main thing. And what do I have to do to help my team, in this case, my teammate Damon, produce the best podcast that we can do today, as opposed to worrying about a short before a show? You know what I mean? I think these incoming freshmen, while they are going to be the stars of the show, it allows all the returning pieces to just be themselves a lot more than they were last year. And I'm not saying last year that Jaden Bradley couldn't be himself. I'm not saying last year that ADO couldn't be himself. I mean, to an extent, he was forced out of being himself by the way that the Big 12 was, one, defending him, and two, I'll say looking to him on the offensive end of things as well.
Yeah.
But I think that, this incoming freshman class is going to take so much time and attention off of like ADO, Tobe Awaka, Jaden Bradley. It's going to make their jobs dramatically easier. And so I'm happy to hear that ADO kind of also feels that. He also kind of feels like this is an opportunity that for him to really show improvement and really show a seamless integration into Tommy Lloyd's scheme in a second year in the system.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And as Michael puts here in the chat, bearded ADO is going to be a problem.
Facts.
It's, everyone knows hoodie Mello, untucked Kyrie, face mask LeBron, and bearded ADO.
Bearded Deli. I'll figure it out later.
Maybe you won't, but we're going to figure out some ad reads here that we have to do on the AZ Wildcats pod. And right after the break, we're going to hit you with some of what was going on from a press conference standpoint at media availability with Arizona football yesterday and lead up to the Kansas State game. And we're going to use that to lead into our K-State versus Arizona preview for Friday night. So stay tuned for all that. We'll talk about all that and more on the AZ Wildcats pod.
And if you are looking to a place to get your Arizona Wildcats memorabilia, level up your representation of your favorite team in the state of Arizona, the Freedom State of Arizona, Rally House is the place for you. If you're an Arizona Cardinals fan, check out our PHNX Cardinals podcast, doing a live show from Rally House very soon, so keep an eye out for that as well. Rally House is your go-to spot for all your local sports memorabilia, and you've heard me talk about it all the time. I'm talking everything from dog leashes and coasters to jerseys and jerseys, folks. Literally everything. Notebooks, pens, a board game or two if you need them. Rally House has it all. I'm talking 39 plus pages on their website of just Arizona Wildcats memorabilia. So if you're in the shopping mood, maybe even just a window shopping mood, check out Rally House. You never know what you're going to find. So find your local Rally House location. There are some in Tempe, Mesa, and Glendale, for example, up by where me and Damon are, and shop their entire product assortment online at www.rallyhouse.com today. And like I said, 39 or more pages of Arizona Wildcats memorabilia on rallyhouse.com right now.
Rally House, where you can find great gear like this beautiful hat that I have on my head right now, Kevin. But I'm more concerned about how I'm going to stop at Circle K later today, because I got to stop at America's Thirst Stop to get locked and loaded when it comes to caffeine, soda, water, ice cream, even snacks. Circle K's got all the snacks. And of course, the Inner Circle Rewards membership program that is so simple to sign up for and is so easy to save money on, big time money. We're talking 25 cents off per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups at the tank, 3 cents off per gallon every time you fill up after that, until you become a premium member and you save 5 cents off per gallon like me and like Kevin. Guys, the Inner Circle Rewards program is the easiest thing ever to sign up for. You download a free app, you put your email in, you choose a password, and it really is that easy. You're done. The savings are right in front of your face. We all know there's Circle K's everywhere, all throughout the state of Arizona, all throughout the country, really. So this is not just an Arizona thing. And the savings are just right there. So make sure that you guys take advantage. Join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit circlek.com for details.
And I know we're going to get to these presser clips in a moment, Damon, but there were some, as we move on to the K-State thing, unless we have any more on Delhi, I do want to talk a little bit about K-State football here, because I was doing some research today about K-State football and trying to get to the bottom of what the hell
what's going on
is going wrong over there, right? Because from our perspective, you and I are looking at it, we're tapped in with the Big 12, but even to the extent that I've been tapped in this season, I'm watching K-State games and I'm seeing some things I think are wrong, but it doesn't make sense as to why you're struggling against a Dakota school and losing outright to Army. It has not made sense why Chris Kleiman's team should be 0-3 to start the season. And as I was doing my research, Damon, I've discovered like genuinely alarming statistics about Kansas State. And I know that I'm going to get to Avery Johnson in a second, right before we get to these clips. I actually think Avery Johnson's like not high on the list of issues at K-State. And I know I put him lower than Sam Leavitt on my power rankings yesterday. Upon further review, ruling on the field, Avery Johnson might be higher than Sam Leavitt on the power rankings after all. Because I'm watching some of the balls he's throwing and like he's delivering some beautiful throws, some not so beautiful throws too. I'm not trying to say he's perfect. He is struggling. The whole damn team is struggling. Mm-hmm. The whole damn offense is confused at times at K-State. But it seems like this is genuinely a defense and coaching issue, which is weird to say about a Chris Kleiman and a K-State team, right? Because listen to these situational stats, I'll say. Kansas State opponents, Damon, in 3 games this year. 3 games. That's 2. That's actually 4. 3 games, 1 on each hand, 3 games in each hand. 10 and 12. 10 for 12 on 4th downs. 4th downs in 3 games. And you're like, well, is that even that crazy? It's 128th in the country. Yeah. 128th.
Out of 134?
I believe so. They allowed just 9 4th down conversions in the entirety of last season, and they have 10 already through 3 games, Damon. It is weird to watch because I was watching some All-22 from their game against Army the other day, and we got like VJ Payne straight up missing assignments, taking bad routes to the ball, not understanding what Army is running. And now I understand we're going to hear Seth Doege talk about how you kind of got to throw that tape away because Army's a weird team, you know, military academy, triple option, the whole thing. I get it. But when you watch some of the stuff that's wrong with K-State, spoiler alert, it had nothing to do with what Army was doing. I mean, obviously you give credit to Army, but there was nothing that Army was doing that K-State had no capability to stop.
I mean, you know what's coming when you're playing a triple option team.
And most teams don't have as much of a problem with it. They get over it over the course of 4 quarters and they figure it out. And I think that's the most alarming thing about K-State right now is you have an inability to get off the field and also an inability to force turnovers, Damon. They have no interceptions this year. 0 interceptions this year, Damon. And in their last 8 games, they're 3-5. So at what point do we look at K-State and just say that they're not the team that we thought that they were? Because defensively, they're returning guys who you'd rely on, like their version of Traden Stukes, their version of Genesis Smith, that we're relying on and saying, I actually have faith that they're going to come back and do the thing. BJ Payne is not doing the thing. He's not. He's not doing the thing. He's not being effective out there. They're allowing Army to finish the game 6 for 7 on 4th down conversions. They should have been 7 for 7 on 4th down conversions because they blew the one in the first half, I believe. And I know that K-State fans are huge on Jace Brown. I'm huge on Jace Brown as a playmaker. I don't think he's like gonna change the world. You know what I mean? From a playmaking or change your program from a playmaking perspective. But yeah, no, I just wanted to bring up the 4th down and the fact that they have yet to get any interceptions, and the 3 fumbles I believe they've forced have pretty much been like some luck of the draw kind of stuff. I'm genuinely worried if I'm a K-State fan that Seth Doege is going to come in here and figure us out. But if you're, like I said, we're going to talk about it, and I want your opinion on the stuff I've said. Could you also argue that K-State's going to give you their best shot on Friday, and it doesn't matter what they've done so far?
Absolutely. I think that's I don't know that it doesn't matter what they've done so far because it absolutely does. They're clearly not the team that they expected to be, that many people around the country expected them to be going into the year. And because of that, I think that you have to say yeah, we're probably getting their best shot going into the week. But at the same time, Kevin, that doesn't make it any more of an excuse if you were to be their get right game. You're 2 things can be true. You're probably getting their best shot and you can't be their get right game after they just lost to Army, after they almost lost to North Dakota and needed a miracle, after, they looked pathetic and lifeless against Iowa State on offense in Ireland. This is an opportunity for Arizona to go out there and take advantage of a reeling football team that is trying to figure things out on the fly while seemingly Arizona is on the ramp up, right? So that's where I think that, yeah, absolutely, you're getting Kansas State's best shot. That's the main reason that I'm sitting here. I'm looking at the line. It keeps, as Justin Spears puts it, snip, snap, moving back and forth, teetering between Arizona and Kansas State, like a point and a half point here and there. And And so, like, I don't know exactly what to expect in this one, but I do know that I think that Arizona, like, this has become an extremely winnable game and almost a game that you have to win if you're the Wildcats of Tucson, not of Manhattan.
The Wildcats are going to win this game.
The
We're
Wildcats
gonna
are
say it again.
breaking news. The Wildcats are in fact going to win this game. But yeah, I mean, it is like this is it's a weird dichotomy to be in right now. I think as Arizona football fans and the Arizona football team in general, where it's like we're playing a bad team, but we almost are like, are they actually a bad team, or are they actually like? Do we need to be way more weary of them than maybe paper would tell you to be? But I think that that's almost an advantage for Arizona's perspective as well, because it's not going to be a situation where U of A is going to go in there and be like, oh my God, we're going to lay an egg because we're looking to Iowa State in 2 weeks, right? That's the game after the bye week.
Correct.
And that's a huge game. And we know we're going to win this one and handle business at home. So we're thinking about beating the Big 12 runners up who are in first place on the road already. It's like, no, you're not going to be, that's not going to be the situation. I think Arizona still very much knows Kansas State has a ton of talent. They just haven't showed it yet.
Yeah, and I think that when you talk about like, and when I've brought it up on the show in the past, like you cannot be their get right game. I think this is the time for Seth Doege to really prove himself at the Big 12 offensive coordinator level in a way. Like take a struggling defense and take advantage of them, and don't let them figure you out first. Yeah. Right? Kansas State already showed an inability to adapt against Army. They've shown an inability to adapt against the Dakota School. They showed an inability to adapt against Iowa State as well over the course of those 4 quarters. And so if you're Seth Doege and you're trying to scheme up how to defeat the K-State defense and VJ Payne and Austin Romaine and all those guys, like I feel like you have to take advantage of what they're got going on wrong right now. Like, and I think what gives me like so much confidence in saying that I think Arizona should win this game against K-State and that you're not going to get the best version of K-State like we think that we will is because they haven't identified really anything so far this season that works for them, right? Like even if, let's say Arizona State, right? Arizona State lost to Mississippi State this past weekend in a loss that had all the fans very disappointed. But what were the eternal optimists in that fan base saying? We found our run game. We know what we can do to beat teams to submission now.
We dominated an SEC team on the ground for a half of football.
K-State can't even say that,
no.
Right? They've not had those flashes. The fans in K-State are begging for more Avery Johnson RPO to see what you can do because you know that he has wheels. You know he can be a dual threat. And throwing it downfield has worked at times for them this year. He's been good airing the ball out at times. So let him be more versatile. Let one hand wash the other in a way. You know what I mean? And I think that and this now becomes on Danny Gonzalez, if he can put K-State's offense in a box, I really feel like Arizona can win this game. And I don't want to do a score prediction as of yet, but I feel like Arizona can win this game and not have it be a complete nail biter. I'll say that. Like I think that Kansas State is struggling to an extent to where I worry that they're just not gonna bounce back in like a weekend on a short week.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I'm with you, Kevin, and I think that that's entirely like very possible. I don't know that that's necessarily my expectation. I don't think that you'd be crazy for thinking that. Arizona's clearly playing better football as of right now than Kansas State is, and honestly, like I kind of am like sitting here thinking like, I don't know if it will be a close game. I kind of almost feel like it's going to be the Kansas State get right game, or it is going to be more of the same. They look lost and Arizona looks like a team that handles business against a lost team at home. But you know, that being said, I probably just jinxed it entirely. It's going down to the final play. And you know, hopefully we win on like a Hail Mary or something.
And it's going to Sam also. Oh, damn. Too soon?
You do not want to experience the head loss on this post-game show. If a dropped game-winning touchdown as time expired happened from Sam Olsen, oh my God.
But yeah.
That would be, you want to talk about, Kevin, you want to talk about going after a kid in college? That would be like dangerous for me.
Yeah, you're chasing him. You're chasing him like Tom chases
You're
Jerry.
killing Noah Fafita's legacy daily. This is all your fault. That type of vibe.
But yeah, no, I think that getting back to like K-State struggles and whether or not they'll come back to the form against Arizona, like I think that this, I feel like this is gonna be a gradual process for K-State.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't think that they're just gonna snap out of this malaise, or else they would have snapped out of it in the second half against Army at home. You know what I mean? Like I really don't think that going on the road
or against North Dakota, brother.
Exactly. Great point. And
look at what Iowa State did to South Dakota. As we've talked about, South Dakota is a better football team than North Dakota by a pretty decent margin. And North Dakota is going down to the wire with K-State versus South Dakota is getting blown out by an Iowa State team that is on the right track. And it's crazy how a game that went down to the wire like that can be such a momentum changer in college football. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. That had a very important context. Like I'm just saying that I think that Chris Kleiman and the squad are likely to get back on track to some extent.
Yeah.
Like, maybe go bowling and make a bowl game, maybe win a bowl game, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if it's coming this soon. And I don't know if it's going to be a complete project over the course of 1 week. And then K-State fans are going to be looking around like, well, I guess everything's fixed and everything's all hunky-dory and Avery Johnson's back and Dylan Edwards is back and we're all good. I just don't see that. And I don't want anyone to misunderstand what I'm saying as me ruling out K-State getting a W on Friday. I'm not ruling that out. But if I'm a betting man, which I am and I've already done,
we made a good amount of money on the Cats so far this year, I will say.
Yeah, and I think Arizona, like this upcoming weekend almost, weekend, start of the weekend, whatever you want to call it, this upcoming Friday has a chance to take advantage of a sputtering team, a struggling team before they can get right. And I don't think that K-State is really in a position to like give me fear as a fan. Now, again, I don't want to rule out that I'm not going to act like it's a given that Arizona wins this game. Arizona could certainly lose this game, and it could look a whole lot like it did last year, right? I just don't – if you're asking me to bet on how many times out of 10 that happens, I just don't think it's likely out of 10 to happen very often. I just think the way Chris Kleiman's squad is playing right now or not playing, and especially the guys that you expected to be high leverage, high snap count guys and really help carry your defense and your offense, they're not contributing in the way they need to. If I'm a K-State fan, I'm worried about this game. If from what I am hearing, they are worried about this game. They think that they can beat Arizona, which is true, they can, but they are definitely worried about not only the state of this game, but the state of the games going forward in this season.
Yeah, I think it's a real litmus test for this Arizona team. And I know we kind of called Hawaii that because we wanted to see them dominate a Mountain West opponent, dominate in a Mountain West coaching staff after what we saw last season versus like a New Mexico, for example, or an NAU. This is, I think, the real litmus test of like how truly good of a team are you? Because I think we've seen it. Army's not even a good caliber team, and they beat Kansas State. If you're a good team, you go in and you beat Kansas State at home. And so, I think we can still possibly win 6 games, make a bowl game if you lose this one. But if you lose, I think the ceiling of this team is drastically lower than if you win. That tells me a lot about the state of the team. Like I said, I still think you could get 6-6 and go to like the LA Bowl, and Kevin and I are partying with Rob Gronkowski, and life's good. But could you imagine if you win and you go like 8-4, maybe you squeak 9-3?
Whoa.
Maybe 9-3 does what it did last year, and it wins you a tiebreaker to win the Big 12 to get into the Big 12 championship game. I mean, I know that's all lofty, but I'm saying like this is like you have to win this game to have any sort of semblance of like ceiling on a season like this. And so it really is a litmus test for me, Kevin. You mentioned Dylan Edwards playing. That's something, we're going to get into the clips here from the press conference yesterday, right after we hit this final break here. But just real quick from an injury standpoint, and we'll talk to Justin Spears tomorrow about this as well. Danny Gonzalez says he expects Dylan Edwards to go. He says he expects, this to be a situation where Kansas State basically is playing like this is their Super Bowl. Because it kind of is. If they lose this one and they're 1-3, season's over.
1-3 mentally, you're 0-4. Like
bowl game is probably off the table because that's your non-con. You just played your non-con. And now you're getting into conference play, and you got like way more of a gauntlet ahead.
You see what I mean when I say I'm worried about them? I'm worried about K-State, man. Like if they don't bounce back, and not to cut you off, I'm trying to add here. Like if they don't bounce back against Arizona, at what point do you? I guess you could say against UCF. right?
Yeah,
But
at home.
you would have said the same thing about North Dakota and Army coming into Manhattan, right? So I don't have much confidence that they should be a gimme against UCF. Then you have Baylor. That's a tough game. Then you have TCU. That might be technically, because of the defense, an even tougher game in some ways. Kansas. Jalen Daniels has looked like the best quarterback in the conference at times this season. Texas Tech, and it goes on, right? Like K-State, if they cannot bounce back against Arizona on Friday, yikes.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, Baylor, TCU, Kansas, Tech, Utah on your schedule. 5 of your remaining 8 games after this one. I mean, that's tough, man. That's real tough. And you would need 5 wins.
Yes, you would.
So I know you say you're worried for Kansas State, and I know you mean it in the way of like you're worried for Kansas State's like I'm worried for your health, brother.
Yeah,
like hand on the shoulder type of deal. But I'm also like I think on the other side of that coin, I'm worried that they're a team that is desperate.
They are
and
desperate,
because of that, they're going to give you everything that they got. Their best play calls, their quarterback putting his life on the line, like diving head first into first downs. And I don't think Arizona is going to be playing that same way because their back isn't up against the wall as much as a Kansas State is. So I think there's a fear factor that goes into that a little bit. But Kevin, we do have to hit this last ad break, and then we do have to get into some of these press conference clips here on the AZ Wildcats pod. Don't go anywhere.
We're hitting the ad break to make a little bit of money, and this next sponsor is meant to save some money into your pockets. Monarch Money is designed for people with busy lives. It's your personal CFO when you can't be your own personal CFO. It tracks your income, your expenses, any goals you have that you want to smash. Monarch Money helps you track and reach your goals. It's not just another finance app. It's a tool that real professionals and real experts and also podcast idiots like me love. I love my Monarch Money app. It's named the best budgeting app of 2025 by the Wall Street Journal and Forbes' best app for couples, if you don't believe me. So Monarch Money is the place to go if you need help managing your finances, saving money, setting goals, reaching goals. And hell, if you have a wife or a partner that you really want to go half on, all your finances with, Monarch Money can handle that process for you as well. So this, don't let the financial opportunity slip through your cracks there. Use code PHNX at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's half off, 50% off your first 12 months of money management tools with Monarch Money. The deals do not get much better than this. Use code PHNX at monarchmoney.com.
Absolutely love our friends at Monarch Money, Kevin, because they just help us save money. And I love our friends at Gila River Resorts and Casinos because then with that savings, I just go have the time of my life. And you might think casino, Damon's only talking about gambling. Absolutely not. I'm talking about the sports book upstairs where there's no better place to catch any sort of sporting event, whether it's a football game now that football's started back up, or even a UFC card like me and your guy Kevin like to maybe involve ourselves in every once in a while. Kevin is still yet to hit up that V Kiva location, but we are, just sitting on the edge of our seats waiting for his review of one of the 4 Valley locations that Gila River Resorts and Casinos has. I am, of course, a Wild Horse Pass man. They have great dining options over there. They have a phenomenal concert venue for all sorts of, music, comedy shows, you name it. They have the pool area with the cabanas, and it's the ultimate staycation spot if you are live in, or just visiting the state of Arizona. No resort fees for Arizona residents as well, Kevin. Another great addition to the Gila River Resorts and Casinos kind of has as a perk for people that are in state to just go take advantage of a quick staycation. And of course, as I say, it's not all about gambling, but it's a little bit about gambling. They got all the live table games and slots that you could possibly imagine. Guys, you do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playatgila.com for more details.
Real quick, UFC coming up this weekend. What is Tatiana Suarez and Amanda Lemos doing on the prelims of that card when you got, I don't know. We don't got to get into that here. But,
dude, I was thinking the same thing, Kevin.
Yeah, just reading my mind, Damon.
I couldn't sleep last night, brother.
Let's get into these clips, Damon. To wrap up today's show, we've kind of talked a little bit about K-State, where they're really struggling. It's kind of a mix of coaching and talent in a way, and it's a really nasty mix because, if you're watching that, you're like, well, the players aren't really executing what they seem to need to do, but the coaches also, like, in situational spots. They're not putting the team in position to be successful. So
Yeah.
it's a really weird mix there going on in K-State. But let's talk about what's going on in Tucson, Damon. You have pulled some clips from the pressers for us. Shall we get into them?
Yeah, let's do it. And I feel like let's start off with kind of the talk about the how you can't, from Seth Doege, you already mentioned it, like having watched them play an Army school that runs a triple option. How does Arizona then watch that tape back and benefit anything from that? And Seth Doege gets into a little bit of the challenges of playing a team that runs a system like that, or playing against a team that just played against a team that runs a system like that.
When it comes to tape, because it's a little bit useless just because obviously the schematics don't add up. You're not going to defend us as the same as you defend Army or Navy or Air Force, whoever they're playing. So yeah, it's a little bit useless tape. Now, I think if you ask anybody else in the country, you don't really want to play those games because it could happen like it did. They're on the field for, I don't know how many snaps they were on the field, but something crazy like 40 plus plays when they got that onside recovery. So that was tough on them. I know listening to a few press conferences, they're a little bit worn down from that game, and so they got to do a great job of recovery this week so they can come in fresh and give us which I anticipate fully. It's Kansas State, it's a Big 12 game, and these guys are full of tradition, so regardless of who they played the week before, they're going to come out, we're going to get their best shot. But yeah, from a scheme standpoint, it's a little bit useless.
So do you have to look more at the first two games then?
Yeah, absolutely. And then those are a little bit skewed too, just because Iowa State's a 12, 13, 14. I mean, they play every single tight end they have on the roster. They're playing in big sets, and then North Dakota was in bigger sets too. So you're not getting a great idea of what they're going to do to you, so you got to use a little bit of imagination.
Kevin, I think that's a really interesting football thing that, I don't know, I felt kind of stupid. I told you after I listened to that, not thinking about that before. Obviously early in a season, if a school plays a Navy, an Army, an Air Force, a school that runs a triple option system, you're going to not really get any good tape in terms of well, if we do this, they're going to do that. Because you're not running that system even anything close to it. So it's almost like you as Seth Doege says there, useless tape. Maybe the offense can take something from it a little, or the defense can take something from it a little bit, just seeing what Kansas State was trying to do offensively and what Avery Johnson was doing. But the Seth Doege's job is much harder in that circumstance. And as he mentions there, Iowa State's playing every tight end they have on the roster in that Ireland game in particular, and they haven't, I'm sure, shown their hand too much against South Dakota in that blowout. Maybe they did against Iowa a little bit more so, but we all know how nasty and gross those football games get too, in terms of just not really opening it up. And then North Dakota, he said, was playing big sets. So Arizona is truly the first different offense that Kansas State is going to play this year in terms of spreading it out, trying to get the ball in the hands of their playmakers, and not really play a trenches line of scrimmage type game. So it'll be interesting to see how Kansas State deals with that. Maybe that benefits them a little bit more. We don't know until we get into the moment, but we certainly know that this is, not the type of game that they're used to playing through these first 3 weeks here.
Yeah, and like you said, the offense does not play against a triple option, right? And I think what's been wrong with K-State's offense, Danny Gonzalez, for example, can learn from. And we're going to hear from him in a second. But like you said, that's not Seth Doege's side of the ball. And what he has to deal with is a defense, that has really had to go up against some strange contextual things from a schematic standpoint. But it's not and we've talked about this a little bit in the last segment, it's not like some of the issues that K-State are facing is simply because of the opponent, right? I think you could have trotted out just about any team against K-State, and some of these issues would have flared up at a time or two, right? The poor angles, the lack of knowledge of where you're supposed to be in time and position on the field, that's not stuff that Army's making you forget. That's not stuff that Army's making you I know they're making you think about more stuff on an average play than you'd have to, but a guy like VJ Payne, who's one of your returning seniors, a 4-year starter, I believe, for Kansas State, is making read errors, basic read errors in the red zone. And I'm that's not an Army thing. That's a VJ Payne thing. And so I think some of the stuff that Seth Doege's going to have to do, he's going to have to get creative to figure out what K-State's really going to try to run upcoming on Friday. But ultimately, I think that he will be prepared in that sense. And I think that he will know what to take away from the tape that he allegedly threw away, right? So, and we know Seth Doege's watching this tape. We know he's watching all the tape. He might call it garbage tape, but that's because he knows it's garbage and he watched all of it and he threw it away after.
He's still going to watch it 100%.
He is a sicko
Kevin.
to the highest degree.
100% he is. Let's hear more from Seth Doege. What's he seen from his quarterback, Noah Fifita, through the first 2 weeks in the Seth Doege system?
Playing quarterback's the toughest position to play in all sports because you don't see everything. And when things aren't going great, it's always your fault. And that's part of playing the position. Was it all his fault? No. You know, there was MAs all over the place. Was there times that it was his fault early in that first game? Yeah, his eyes progression was fast. He missed throws he doesn't normally miss. I thought his feet were a little happy at times. But the greatest thing about him is he owned it. After the game on Weber, you know, like I told you, I was a little bit disappointed in the way we finished. And he came up to me and said, "Coach, that's on me." And right then I knew, that was just like told me everything. I mean, I already knew the kid, I already knew who he was and what he's about, but it was like, okay, he is a real one. And so he took a lot of ownership of that first game of like how that's not the standard of play he wants to play at, but he also took the accountability and owned it, fixed it going into that next week and played pretty elite, you know, and I think there's a few throws he'd like to have back, a few reads he'd like to have back, but I mean, missed 5 throws all game, and a couple of them could have been caught, right? And then he had a couple really, really impressive scrambles. I thought, like, to me, he's a little bit different than he was last year on his feet when he decides he wants to use it, you know. So that's going to be another advantage to his game. But I'm really proud of him. I'm proud of the way he responded. I'm proud of the way he prepped. He prepped really hard. And then, you know, I think it's, you know, for a guy like Noah, where he does put so much work into his preparation in the week, that sometimes, like, you just got to encourage him, man, go let it loose. Because I think guys get so bottled up. I'm one of them, you know, and especially when I was playing, man, I always felt like I was the most prepared on the field. There was nobody that was more prepared than me. But then you got to go let it loose. You got to go play. And I thought he did a great job at that on Saturday.
I could listen to Seth Doege talk all day long, Kevin. I actually saw this, and I'll give credit to this take because they were the first person I saw kind of make this comparison. AZ Bandcat Sports tweeted that, like, he's like the offensive version of Dan Lanning. Don't you see it a little bit? I don't know. I get a similar vibe from like an intensity standpoint,
yeah.
and like the eye contact and the way they speak and just kind of their vibe, like, and you know, that guy's in our wings. It would really be unfortunate to lose a guy like that if he was super successful, but that's good people problems. That's first world problems for sure. But yeah, we're going to listen to what Seth Doege has seen from his offense in general in overtime, Kevin, on the AZ Wildcats podcast. Of course, the air horns.
OT.
We are in OT now. But yeah, I just think, you know, Seth Doege, clearly, you know, him and Noah Fifita, I think like all of us were saying, like, Noah Fifita's first game against Hawaii, it wasn't exactly you know, the best game of Noah Fifita's career. We still gave him the MVP, Kevin, because we didn't really know who else to give it to. I guess we could have given it to Quincy Craig in hindsight, but you know,
he got the OPOG.
No, Kedrick Reesano.
Or no, did he get the breakout? He got one of them.
He got the transfer, and Isaiah Mizell got the breakout. Maybe we make an amendment to that one. Who knows? But we gave Noah Fifita the MVP still, just because we think, you know, quarterback, as Seth Doege said, most important position on the football field. Everybody knows that. And so, you know, I thought that even despite it being a rusty game for Fifita, it wasn't a bad game for Fifita. Still gave it to him. No one else really jumped off the screen at us. This past game, he was unbelievable. Didn't put a foot wrong. Looked unreal. If it wasn't for Sam Olsen, you know, would have even had an extra highlight play. Like, I just think, you know, this is the version of Noah Fifita that we're more accustomed to seeing. Last year was definitely more of a fluke, in my opinion, and we're going to see that more efficient version that we saw against Weber State. I know it's Weber State, more so than we are going to see the version of Noah Fifita that we saw last year against every Big 12 opponent that we played. So I'm excited for it. I think the balance in the offense is going to help a ton as well, the balance in the skill position group. But seems like Seth Doege liked what he saw in from progression from a week 1 to week 2 standpoint.
Well, the first game I was a little bit frustrated on how we played in the second half, because I felt like there was a little bit of a lull. We had like 17 points in like 23 plays, and I could be wrong on that, but it was something like that. So Danny gave us the ball on short fields, so I felt like we did a good job of executing in the first half, and then the second half I felt like after halftime we kind of relaxed. We came out, scored right out of the gate, and then relaxed, and that's just not the standard that I want to set. That's not the type of offense I want to be. I want to step on people's throats. And then last weekend I thought we were way more explosive. I thought we had more opportunities to be explosive. Like I said, I felt like that first game we were on short fields, so the calls were a little bit different. This game we got a chance to get in a rhythm early. I still wish we could have finished a little bit better. My standard is extremely high. Those kids know that. So, but I was really proud of the way they played. I thought both games, the effort has been tremendous. The intention has been tremendous. We just got to make sure that when it's time to finish, that we finish.
Effort has been tremendous. Intention has been tremendous. Love hearing that out of Seth Doege, who is dissecting every single play, trying to see if people are not, giving the requisite intensity that is needed to play football here at Arizona on any given play. And I think, he's appreciated the effort standpoint, but there's still some things schematically to clean up, as with any football team. He also mentioned he was very proud of Rhino Tapa'atotai for getting out there and, count that, by the way, getting out there and
count it,
and getting his feet wet again after a really long hiatus. Another injury update from our guy Danny Gonzalez that he said in the press conference, and I don't have this video, but he says Trey Smith, he truly does not know whether Trey Smith will play or not. Kevin, did you even know Trey Smith got hurt in the Weber State game? Because he got hurt on the Genesis Smith interception, where kind of a Weber State player kind of fell over top of Trey Smith on the return. And Trey Smith, instead of needing, the injury people to come help him, go into the tent, you name it, got up, jogged off the field. And Danny Gonzalez was like, we take a lot of pride in that over here at Arizona, that if you can get up off the field, you get up off the field. Sounds like Trey Smith got pretty hurt, but it didn't matter. He was still able to get up and jog himself off. Unclear whether or not he's going to be ready to go for Kansas State, though. Danny Gonzalez also said, he thinks Matt Wells and Chris Kleiman will probably think that he's the biggest liar on planet Earth for saying that he doesn't know, but that he actually truly does not know. So sounds like that's very 50-50, could go either way. And it would be a big loss for Arizona when this is probably their first game they're going to have to play this is definitely their first game they're going to have to play at a perceived line disadvantage. And so your best defensive lineman is, needless to say, very, very important there.
I did see that this morning, Damon. And I had, a thought for you on it, because one of the main things I key pointed as an area of weakness for K-State is their run game, right? They have not been able to run the ball specifically between the tackles, right? Stuff outside, they've had some level of success, but stuff up the middle.
With Avery Johnson, he'll scamper and get a few, but you're right. They're not effectively just being what's coming and we're going to give it to you anyways.
Yeah, they struggle to run it between the tackles. They're in the 120s nationally in power run success rate and also stuff rate allowed. So they can't really run it up the middle, and when they do, they're getting stuffed more than most of the teams in the country. And I think that Trey Smith figures to be a big part of that, right? Be a big part of being able to contain that run game, keep it where you want it to be, and force K-State to pass the ball more than they want to, force K-State to keep Avery Johnson centered in the pocket, right? So, yeah, Trey Smith, if he is absent for this one, that is a big loss for the Arizona Wildcats, because the run game of K-State, and honestly, the offensive line in general has been a bit of a mess for K-State this year. So you want to be able to take advantage of that, and Trey Smith would really, really help you.
Yeah, no doubt about it. This isn't necessarily going to be a elite level transition for you here, Kevin, but Trey Spivey played at Kansas State last year. He spoke to media yesterday as well, given, kind of the importance of this game for him. He said that, when he made his decision to come to Arizona, he was aware that Kansas State was on the schedule, but that it really had no impact on his decision-making. He wasn't choosing his next school based off of can I play Kansas State and give it back to him or not? But he said he is excited to get out there and play against some of his old teammates, old friends, and see some people he hasn't seen in quite a while. He also said that it was a great experience for him and that he learned a ton about himself and how to play with, a ton of effort and intensity all the time, because that is the standard over there at Kansas State. They work very hard, he talked about. But he did mention that he was asked the question, what does Kansas State's offense look like when it's rolling? And this was his answer.
One of the biggest factors with that offense is, they play off energy. When the sideline was quiet over there, heads would go down, and it felt like we were beating ourselves up at certain points in the game. They got once you get in your head, it started a snowball effect. So I think that when the energy was super high and, each situation they're able to build off of, I think that's what created such an explosive offense over there. And you had a lot of players, you had a lot of playmakers, like super good players that could play at different positions and move around. So
interesting answer for me, Kevin. The question was, what does their offense look like when it's rolling? You expect more of Avery Johnson's, hitting on everything. He's getting out of the pocket, making off script, huge plays, blah, blah, blah. But his natural answer was, well, they feed off energy. And when things are going bad, people are putting their heads down. And I think that's a circumstance of he played on that team last year. He knows what last year felt like for Kansas State. There's a reason they're on the no bet list, Kevin. It's because last year they were horrific as well. And they lost me a ton of money last year with their lines being lower than you would think based off of the caliber of team you thought Kansas State was. And they just had a disaster end to the season in particular. And I think Trey Spivey is clearly remembers that. He's looking over across the aisle and saying, doesn't look like things have changed. In fact, it looks like things have gotten a lot worse. And I think it's of note that he's sitting up there and saying to himself, or saying to media, when he knows that, this is a kind of a somewhat of a gotcha moment. Not that the journalists and media members were trying to get him to say something incendiary, but
it's a spot where he could step in it.
He knows going into this, hey, when they ask me about Kansas State, because that's why I'm up here on the podium, is don't say anything that's going to give, a little bit of bulletin board material to those guys. And yet he still goes, heads are dropping. Energy's kind of low. What does that say to you, Kevin?
It kind of just reflects what we've seen from K-State thus far this season. And it's another reason as to why I've been it's more validating for me than anything, because I've been saying, I'm not sure that K-State's going to just snap back to life on a short week after the most demoralizing loss yet in their last 8 games, right? And fans are saying, I know there's always, doomsday fans out there when a team loses, right? But there's a not so quiet minority of fans in the K-State fan base saying that's the worst loss in a long time. I'm talking a long time. And I think even the fans that don't think it's the worst loss, they think it's up there. And I think that level of adversity, to have to try to overcome that on not only any week, but pardon me, a short week on the road against an opponent that you've beaten before, but it's hard to beat teams back to back unless, whatever. And I just think the context is not favoring K-State in this matchup. And Trey Spivey's answer to that question, I think, illustrates that. Right? Yeah. It illustrates I know I can say this because when they hear it, they're just going to know it's the truth, right? They're not going to be fired up, mad. Oh, I can't believe he said that our heads drop and we only rely on energy. It's some teams, they like that. I feel like some teams, they like being we're the energy team, right? We come in
ASU last year.
Right, we're just going to run through everybody. We're the energy team. That's what we do.
There was no more energy team in the sport last year. Those guys were not uber talented. They were not, you see it with Cam Scottaboo in the NFL. Now the athleticism and its deficiencies are showing, right? He's probably not going to be that great of an NFL player, but he's insane in college.
Yeah,
and the momentum that they had built was wild, and it kept snowballing over and over again. I think bad momentum probably works in the same way, right?
That's exactly what I'm getting at, Damon. I think this bad momentum has been snowballing pretty much since week, I don't know what it was, maybe 12 of last year, whenever
Earlier than that.
going back
yeah.
their last 8 games is what I'm saying. They're 3-5 in their last 8. I think that the expectations were really high for not only Avery Johnson last year, but K-State last year. You underwhelm. You're thinking, okay, that's fine. We're going to come into the year. We're going to rock it this year, and we're going to, shut everybody up. And then you don't for the first 3 weeks, and you look really bad, really disappointing. Maybe not in Avery Johnson's case, but you look really underwhelming in Avery Johnson's case, right? Not really bad. The whole team looks really bad, but Avery Johnson just looks underwhelming. I think I'm not buying that K-State's going to have this energy shift over the course of 5 days after the worst loss in the program's recent history.
That's a wake-up call, though.
It is a wake-up call, but I think
you also could argue that North Dakota escaping with 20 seconds left should have been a wake-up call before Army.
And I guess what I was gonna say to argue the other side of the devil's advocate there is and you could also say that since you're an energy team, that just only hurts your snowball.
Correct.
Does an energy team even have the capability for a wake-up call? I was listening to, and this is really random, but I promise I'm getting to a good point. I was listening to a podcast this morning about the difference between sociopaths and psychopaths. Sociopaths, they have the capability to feel things. They just struggle to do it. Psychopaths, they literally cannot feel. They just can't do it, right? It's not possible for them. They don't struggle. They just can't do it. I'm at the point where I'm like, is K-State, do they have the ability to get back to not being an energy team, or are they just an energy team, right? Or are they just a team that
one man's word?
Once they're
it is. I don't think sitting up here and being like they're just an energy team.
No, but I meant more so
we're not in that locker room. That's one guy whose words are saying that.
That's true. That's true. But I guess when the one guy's words match the eye test of what you've seen through the first 3 games, I feel fine being like, this team is an energy team that has no energy right now. Yeah, and it allows an Army team to walk into your home arena and walk in your trap, take over your trap, and then walk out of Manhattan with a win. And I know that K-State is not purely an energy team, but the way Avery Johnson is, I feel like he's more of a confident guy when he's rolling. He's rolling when he's underwhelming. That's just what he is in that space of the season. So I feel like Trace Spivey's comments are probably accurate. Like you said, we're not in that locker room, but based on
I'm not saying they're not accurate. I'm saying that sitting up here and being like, we know they're an energy team is a little bit of we're inferring that they're an energy team more so is I guess what I was trying to say. I think, we can, it's most Kansas State fans agreed with what Trace Spivey had to say. Most Kansas State fans on that tweet, and it did find its way into Kansas State circles, were saying, hey, he's right. Don't love hearing this. So some of them were like, don't love hearing this from a former player, but he's on the money. We're watching it with our eyes. So I think most Kansas State fans would agree with his statement. We did, however, Kevin, have a couple morons.
Real quick, before we fight back, before the revenge of the Damon, I just wanted to wrap this up by saying there's been a lot of discourse, speaking about the K-State fan base from what I've seen online, about the quote-unquote player-led program that Chris Klieman has put out there, right? And we're talking about whether or not they're an energy team. We're talking about whether or not they're able to snap back after adversity, right? And I think that there's a subplot conversation that's happening in Manhattan right now of, does Chris Klieman have full control over the direction of the program? And not in a dramatic way, he's just lost the locker room, but more so in a player-led locker room. Who are the guys, if not the coach, that's going to step up and say, hey guys, this is damn unacceptable. We just lost to Army at home. Is that we don't know, we're not in there, you know what I mean? But from what I've heard from the K-State fan base, it does not sound like there's a huge amount of faith that this team has a huge group of leaders that is holding it down for Chris Klieman in that locker room while he's letting them lead. And the quote that I heard from one of the K-State journalists I was listening to this morning was, will the players lead this team to the promised land, or will they lead this team off the cliff? And I think that's kind of the position that Chris Klieman has kind of put himself in this season by letting the players do more of the leading in the locker room and leading in that way. And yeah, I think that kind of ties into our conversation about the energy with this team as well, right? If you don't have that coach like Seth Doege that comes over and says hey, you got to be better, right? Does that? Who is that guy? If not Chris Klieman? So I'm just interested to see the mentality that K-State comes into this weekend with Damon. But like you said, not all the K-State fans agreed with the more level-headed side of their fan base, right?
No, a few of the Kansas State fans were ready to potentially make this into a kind of a bigger thing here. One of them did the office gif of Ryan putting the notes, basically insinuating that this has been bookmarked, I believe. And then another one here, and this one is definitely a little bit more there's some context provided, but says a lot of talk for a kid who couldn't learn the playbook in his 2 years here. There was another comment that
VJ Payne.
there's another comment that was like that as well, kind of taking shots at Trey Spivey and his inability to learn the playbook. First off, he was a true freshman his first season. So if the expectation level is you must be 17, 18 years old and step on the football field and be the best receiver on this team, I think we've lost the plot a little bit. Second off, he was gaining he did have a little bit of playing time in his redshirt freshman season. He then transferred and found an opportunity that was better for him. And, I think the saltiness is comes from a place of like they didn't want to lose the player, most likely. But I do think it's funny. You got a couple just like idiots being like, let's get mad at the kid versus let's be mad at our own team who stinks right now and is embarrassing our university. But, I think as much as, that this was somewhat of a negative thing that was built towards like, hey, they feed off energy and their energy's been really bad and they're kind of in the mud right now. Danny Gonzalez brought up how Kansas State is the standard when it comes to programs in the Big 12, and I kind of agree with them.
Kansas State is like the standard of what we're trying to build. Coach Kleiman's done a great job. You go all the way back to Bill Snyder. Like, Kansas State has a bunch of really tough kids. I think Gravy Johnson's a great player. And Matt Wells is doing some things with him different than they did 2 years ago, different than they did last year. Last year he had 18 rushes for 70-some yards against us. So when you get into games now, and this is not a conference game on record, but it's a conference game. I mean, it's a similar opponent. I mean, it doesn't matter. You play all your cards. Like, there's no more holding anything back. It's about winning now and having a chance to elevate to win enough games to win a conference championship, make the CFP, and do all those things.
I think there's a lot of respect there from Danny Gonzalez. He said that him and Matt Wells worked together. I believe it was at New Mexico when they were both assistant coaches before Danny Gonzalez was the head coach at New Mexico. But they have a pre-existing relationship, from working together in the past, and he has a lot of respect there. Listen, I think right now things are definitely on the downturn in Manhattan, and they were last year as well. But prior to that, Kansas State was a staple in competing in Big 12 championship games against schools that have far superior infrastructures and resource levels. And I feel that, they are really the model of consistency when it comes to small programs or small school like vibes. I guess I say that in the sense of like, they're not Alabama, they're not Ohio State. Obviously, they're still a power program. I'm saying like we would be in the same regard here. But that they compete. They're small but mighty. They compete with the top level teams and have for the better part of a decade here. And I think that they deserve that respect, truly. But clearly things are not, working out to their best. They're not showing their best hand right now when it comes to how they've played in 2025.
Yeah, in 2022, Chris Kleiman goes 10-4, loses in the Sugar Bowl. But in 2020, in 2020 went 4-6. Obviously, COVID, the whole thing. That's a weird situation. But it feels like this would actually be his first true dud of a season if he was unable to turn this around. Because outside of that, you're talking 8-5 in his debut season in 2019, 8-5 in 2021, the year before 2022, and then after that, 2023 9-4. Last year 9-4. This year starts out 1-2. Yeah, but this could be the first actual down year for K-State in quite some time, probably since 2018 when they didn't go bowling under Bill Schneider in his last season before Chris Kleiman.
How bad would it have to be for Chris Kleiman to potentially lose his job? Because, he has been consistent. He has been a very, very good coach at Kansas State thus far, but
to lose his job after this season? How bad would that be?
I feel like they do because of how good their program's been recently. They probably do have pretty high standards. And I wonder if they were to put together a 4-8 season like Arizona did last year in an equally upsetting way, favorites to win the conference going into the year. and then they finished 4-8. Is that enough to be a hot seat type of coach, or
I don't think
not
so.
for you?
I think it makes it a hot seat, yes, but I don't think he loses his job.
Yeah.
I just think he's put together too many wins, too many bowl wins, specifically too many bowl appearances in his short time at K-State so far to really get out that quickly. I mean, Brent Brennan kept his job after last season.
I think if
And I know
Brent
the
Brennan-
context is different.
If he did what he did at Kansas State, he would have been fired.
I get you, but I'm saying that
Arizona has a shortfall of budget problem, and DRF didn't want to spend $14 million to let Brent Brennan go. That was not Arizona believes in Brent Brennan to turn this ship around in year 2, even though I think, he clearly has to some extent. And I'm not saying that there was no avenue for that happening. I'm sure that was their best case scenario in terms of keeping that money. But it does feel like, that was definitely more of the problem there, the roadblock there, than necessarily let's just hold on to it. Like, he's going to get better next year.
But I think more so, my point with bringing up the Brennan comparison was I think, look at what Brent Brennan, in being kept was able to do. And I think K-State would look at this and be like, well, Chris Kleiman's gotten us to a bunch of bowl games. He's got, 3 bowl wins under his belt at K-State. I think we try to maybe change some stuff at coordinator, change some stuff around the fringes. You know what I mean? And as opposed to, throwing the baby out with the bathwater in a way.
Yeah.
And I think that what Chris Kleiman is looking at, though, this season is his first real down year for K-State. But I hope it continues on Friday, Damon. And I hope we send him into the gutters. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. We got one last clip that we're going to hit here. Danny Gonzalez talked about former Arizona Wildcat Gunnar Maldonado, the rare triple Wildcat, returning to Tucson and just kind of how fans should receive him.
I would love to have Gunnar here because when you have multiple guys that have that much experience, there's so much more you can do with packages, whether you want to put 6 DBs in there. The dollar package they had in 23 was 7. But being an every down player, knowing the wall he was against, he decided that going to Kansas State would give him a better opportunity to have that refresh start, which as a person, I absolutely love Gunnar. And I'm super excited. And any kid that decides to give themselves a better chance, like the city of Tucson should still love Gunnar Maldonado. Don't be disappointed because he chose to go a route that he thinks is best for him. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing Gunnar, just to give him a hug and tell him how proud of him I am that he busted his tail to get back from a knee injury, much like Traden, and be able to see him play on the field. I mean, it's fantastic.
I every time I listen to Danny Gonzalez talk, I'm just like, what a good dude. Doesn't he just seem like the best guy? Like,
he does.
When it comes to being a father, a husband, a coworker, a coach, a mentor, like, he just seems like he's just, he has the ultimate belief in his people and the people around him. And, that was a nice answer there for talking about a former player in Gunnar Maldonado. Who, the question was from our guy Justin Spears, and he asked basically, like, does Genesis's growth kind of lead to the transfer of Gunnar Maldonado? And basically Danny Gonzalez was like, yeah, we knew Genesis Smith. Genesis is a freak, he said. And then he was like, we knew Genesis was going to be one of the biggest, if not the single biggest part of our defense next year. And we knew he was going to take all the snaps. And so from a Gunnar Maldonado perspective, where could he go where he could take those free safety snaps and kind of have that, rather than being like maybe more of a third safety like he would be at Arizona with Dalton Johnson playing that strong safety spot. So I think that was the reasoning that Gunnar Maldonado left. You can't blame him for that. And it will be cool to see Gunnar return to Tucson here. I hope he gets a good ovation, because I'll never forget that interception return that he had in that Alamo Bowl game, Kevin. That was a truly special moment. I was there live in person. That was one of the single coolest plays I've seen in my entire time as a football fan, as a sports fan, definitely as an Arizona Wildcats fan. And I've been to a ton of games in person. That was up there with like top 10 play in Arizona football history that I've seen with my own 2 eyes. And I'll never forget the feeling of like that ball popping up in the air. Gunnar Maldonado has it, and now he's running it back 95 yards the other way with a convoy of blockers. Just a beautiful game, and shout out Gunnar.
Can I give you a really quick Gunnar Maldonado story about the first time I actually even discovered that he existed?
Sure.
I had.
I heard the podcast wasn't long enough, so we need to stretch this thing out.
I was working at the cottages. Damon knows it well. Shout out to 1000 East 22nd Street. You know what I'm saying? I think either and why now
legends were made.
Now I'm a little bit older, so it's been a minute now. But me and Gunnar are the same age, both born in 2001, and I think the year I was working there, he was moving in potentially to the cottages or like doing a tour there or something, and I didn't like recognize him at the time.
He looks like a dude who goes to U of A.
Looks like a dude who goes
just
to
like
U of A.
Sam Levitt looks like a dude who goes to ASU.
But what makes Gunnar Maldonado stand out from the rest of the dudes that go to U of A is the arm sleeve tattoo he has. And I noticed it when he came up to the front desk, and I was like, oh, those are really high-quality tattoos. Like, where'd you get that done? Can you send me your artist, whatever? He showed me the Instagram. Point being is later I was going through the roster, and I was like, that's tattoo guy.
Yeah.
That's the tattoo guy that from the front desk. And then I was a Gunnar Maldonado fan ever since because he was a really nice guy about the whole thing. Me weirdly
like
asking him about his tattoos. So yeah, shout out to Gunnar Maldonado. Like you said, hope he gets a good ovation.
Yeah, hopefully he gets a good ovation for sure. Kevin, I know I said we're going to do our bets. We're going to punt tomorrow. We'll do our betting preview for the entire college football weekend. We're going to talk to our guy Justin Spears, kind of get the expert preview of Kansas State versus Arizona and what to expect in that one, what he's hearing boots on the ground there. You can follow me, of course, at Damon Dog. You can follow my guy Kevin at Kevo Post, and you can follow us at PHNX_Wildcats on all social except for TikTok, where we're at AZ Wildcats Pod. Kevin's making a lot of things happen over there on the TikTok streets. Go support what he's got going on over there. Like I said, support our social channels, support our company in general, become a supporting member of our PHNX Sports YouTube page.
Throw that bear down emote in the chat.
Yeah,
you
guys,
can earn the right to throw a bear down emote in the ASU chat.
We got a Wildcat hand emoji. You can, of course, as Kevin said, troll ASU fans by using that Wildcat hand emoji. We got AZ Catch G.
AZ Catch G has access.
You can, of course, see he has that little yellow badge of honor just to show everybody, I'm better than you people. And he puts the Wildcat hand emoji in the chat. I don't want to just play favorites here, but AZ Catch G, you're my favorite. I'd like for a few of the rest of you to become one of my favorites as well by becoming a supporting member of this fine program. We really appreciate everybody who gets involved, and we can constantly add to the different emoticons and stuff that we'll add on to as supporting member access. The road doesn't stop here with one little hand signal. If you think something would be fun to have on the show, please let us know, and we will add it to PHNX Sports' supporting membership status. Kevin, that's going to do it for us today. Do you have anything to add before we get out of here?
Yeah, can we take like 1.5 minutes to mention the fact that Damon and I are going to go do CrossFit with Becky Burke probably at some point?
Yeah, Kevin, of course, tweeted, should I work out every day until Arizona basketball
like
gets
a fool,
back?
Like a fool.
Becky Burke, of course, quote tweeted it and said yes. And so now me and Kevin are on the road of potentially getting in on the Becky Burke crazy CrossFit style workouts that she does every morning. And embarrass ourselves in the process. Hopefully some good content will come out of something like that. But Kevin, like I said, Justin Spears tomorrow, maybe a U of A football player or coach sometime later on. Hopefully we can get that done at some point here in the near future. But that's going to do it for us on the AZ Wildcats pod today. I'm Damon. That's Kevin. We are the AZ Wildcats pod here at PHNX Sports, and we'll catch you next time. Until then, peace out. Bear down.
And go Cats. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie.
Oi, oi, oi.
We all silly like the mayor.